So y'all, we're almost done with 2023, and by the looks of things, it's kind of a good thing. Y'all wore me out this year. I can only pray for better days for 2024. But one thing that was very, very important in 2023 was that we took the entire year to look back at hip-hop. 50 years. This year we marked 50 years of hip-hop. We did a lot of content here on the channel. We did content on soulandstereo.com. But before the year wraps up, I want to give my players a chance to ask questions. So yes, before we end 2023, we're going to have a hip-hop Q&A, players. You're going to hit me with the questions. I'm going to hit you with the answers. And we're going to talk a little bit of hip-hop and probably get in a little bit of trouble along the way. That's what makes it fun. Welcome back, players, for another edition of the Soul and Stereo Sessions here on YouTube. You know how we get down. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, what we're going to do today is a hip-hop Q&A. I mean, I hope you remember. We just talked about it like 30 seconds ago. But here's how it goes down. So I put out the call for questions on all the social media platforms, on Twitter, on Instagram, and yes, on Facebook, the Soul and Stereo Cypher. Listen, if you like what we do here on YouTube, if you just want to talk hip-hop, you want to talk R&B all day long, 24/7, go to the Facebook page, Soul and Stereo Cypher. Just throw it in your little search thing. You'll find us. A group of about 1,000 fans. We're just talking music all day long. Plus some other stuff too. Lots of madness. But I got lots of questions from all of those areas across social media. I got them right here on my trusty little Eye of Thundera phone. I'm just going to go through them and we're going to riff and we're going to see what the answers are. But before we get started, you know how it goes around here. Take a moment, hit that like button if you haven't already. Make sure that when this video is wrapped up, you share it with your peoples. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Really means a lot to your boy. Means a lot to my man D Roth. And most importantly, it helps get the word out. Plus, don't forget, go in the comments, yell about all of my answers below, and of course, share your own. So, it's going to be pretty easy and simple today, players. I'm going to go through and see what's up with these questions. Let's do it. Alright, and here we go. Question number 1 comes from my man Vocals. What do you think about the current state of rap? How much time you got? Because this video could go 3 hours off of that one question alone. But look, I'll keep it real. I wish I could be more optimistic because we here at Hip Hop 50, but you don't come to me for optimism, you come to me for that real. And to be honest, I do feel like hip hop in general is sliding down, not just creatively, but I think in many ways. So hip hop has always been the dominant genre for at least the past decade or a little bit over in this country. But what we're seeing is that starting to wane a bit, and people are wondering why. Oh, why are we not seeing all the number ones? What's going on? I think that what's happening is a little bit of fatigue from the mainstream because hip hop is not evolving, y'all. Hip hop was never meant to be this boilerplate thing where you create one sound, one style, one thing, and you just drive it into the ground. Think about hip-hop over the years. It's always evolved from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s. And within those decades, we had different segments in those times. From like the jazzy movement, the crunk era. And these eras only lasted, maybe 2 or 3 years at the most. We've never had a sustained run that we have now. And I think that lack of creativity in the mainstream, mind you, not overall, but in the mainstream, is starting to hurt hip-hop a little bit. And you know what's really telling to me? A lot of those youngins, when Soul and Stereo was but a wee bit babe on the web, a couple years old, and I would talk about I don't like this and I don't like that, and I got you 19, 20-year-olds yelling at me about, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, oh, this is great, Nicki Minaj invented female rap. Okay. But what we're seeing now is that audience, about 10 years older, they've grown up, they have more discerning tastes, and even they kind of like, hip-hop's getting a little dull. And I'm like, welcome to old head land. Come on, we got a seat for you. Take some Metamucil with me. But seriously, I think that overall the genre is a little stagnant. And even though we've seen all these incredible celebrations of Hip Hop 50 over the past year, most of the strongest celebrations have been artists from like the 80s and the 90s. And younger fans were like, oh, why aren't we getting the artists from the 2010s and 2020s? They're not really holding a candle to it. You're starting to see some cracks in the foundation is what I'm saying. I'm not saying hip-hop is dead. Shout out to Nas in like 2006. I'm not saying that. But I do think that we are in dire need of a creative groundswell. Because right now, looking a little stagnant out there. Let's see what we got next. Hopefully what these next questions won't be as depressing. Shout out to my man Jay Connor. He asked, who is the most underrated rapper of all time? And I have a very, very simple, easy answer for it. No question, to me, the most underrated rapper of all time is AZ. Some of y'all might be like, what? Some of y'all might be like, who is AZ? And the reason if you ask who is AZ, that answers it right there. Why do I say AZ? I'm going to tell you right now. AZ, in my opinion, the way we celebrate Nas, AZ is just as good in many, many, many ways. And I kind of hate that their careers are always, whenever you mention AZ, you kind of got to mention Nas. And that's one of the ways that I feel like he is underrated. He doesn't stand out a lot on his own because he's so intrinsically linked to Nas's debut album and his incredible guest verse there, really his coming out party. But beyond that, let's look at AZ, the artist himself. AZ has his own 5-star album. Yes, he does. I think his debut is 5 stars. I think his 2002 album is very close to 5 stars. The man kills every guest verse. The man can tell a story. The man has a very impeccable discography. He had a pretty good album this year. He's pretty consistent across the board. The only thing he was never able to do was to get a consistent mainstream single run. And don't get me wrong, he's got plenty of singles that are actually tailor-made for radio, would do well on radio, but he just never clicked. But as an actual artist, you're talking about skill, storytelling, pretty much all of the elements. He's got everything. To me, the best artist who has not gotten his due. You can name a whole bunch of other people who should be higher than they are, but in my opinion, there's no one to his level of talent, his body of work, and doesn't get the shine that he deserves. So AZ, most underrated of all time if you ask your boy. Let me see what we got next. Oh, another underrated artist if you ask me. This one comes from Paul Samuel. Black Thought, he starts. An incredible MC, lyrical ability is up there with the best. Major respect from those within the community. So why isn't that he gets the same success as Biggie, Pac, M, J, Wayne, etc., all of which he can go toe-to-toe with one-on-one? Another answer that's kind of easy to me, unfortunately, is because Black Thought, for the majority of his career, has been confined to the roots. And that might sound negative to some people. I'm not saying that at all. Because I agree. I think that if you just talk about pure lyricism, he may be the greatest lyricist of all time. If he's not, he's absolutely top 3. Not even a question. But most of his greatest stuff have been with the roots. Combined with that and with almost hidden within that collective. And even though they've had some mainstream hits, they just have never been on the level of the artists that you mentioned. Jay, Big, Pac, Wayne, Eminem. Roots have never been at that level. They've always been kind of dismissed as kind of like, oh, those are the backpack guys. They're over there doing that thing. But listen, when it comes to actual talent, lyricism, quality storytelling, he's up there with the best. He deserves that. He deserves everything. And now that we're kind of in the more recent times, he's branching out on his own. one of my picks for best albums of the year is his project from this year. So I'm glad he's kind of branching out, getting to have his name at the top of the marquee for the first time. But yeah, I think the main reason why is he's just kind of been hidden, so to speak, within the roots. Kind of a shame because, yeah, he's one of the best ever. No question. All right, y'all. The next one comes from the homie Fatoshi. How do you think about current KRS-One? KRS, look, I won't say anything bad about the teacher. It's funny that you send this because literally right before I logged onto this, I was reading an article about him going off about these Hip Hop 50 celebrations and saying, oh, it's not a celebration if I'm not there. This is y'all. I know y'all gonna send this video to him and he's gonna cuss me out because KRS-One will cuss a brother out. Look, I got all the respect in the world, and a lot of times, I don't care if your faves cuss me out. Cuss them, come on and bring the cussing. But in this case, I feel bad because I have so much respect for KRS-One. So much ground. We talked about AZ, we talked about Thought, we talk about these MCs who have really laid the groundwork and are very underrated for what they are. I think KRS has always had a little chip on his shoulder. He was celebrated as one of the forefathers, one of the greatest ever in the 80s, but as hip-hop continued to move beyond the 90s and 2000s, he did seem to be put on the back burner quite a bit. And I think that's why he's a little grouchy with his spot. He has a chip on his shoulder. He feels like everything is bypassing him, and he can be very vocal about what he thinks. Very. But I can't hate what he has done for hip-hop. Am I a fan of his new stuff? Not really. The production? Not really. Somebody call Hit Boy and get him to help him out. I think it would be better. He's a legend, no question. But sometimes, you know, you got that uncle who you love. But like, you know, it's like you don't even want to, Thanksgiving come, you're like, I don't even want to sit beside him because he's going to be fussing about everybody in the family. That's how I feel about KRS. You love him, but you don't want to sort of sit through all that fussing and complaining. But who knows? I'm going to be that uncle very soon. So who am I to judge? Okay, players, up next is my boy Paul. With less and less of top streaming rappers writing their own rhymes, and an increase of AI in hip-hop, do you think Hip Hop 50 could be the last great celebration of MCs? What a sad but very poignant question. Unfortunately, that may be true. Because when you look back at what Hip Hop 50 celebrated, and I know a lot of younger fans were like, oh, you don't show enough love to us. But if you're talking about history, you have to talk about where we came from. You got to talk about the foundations. We don't go to history class and talk about what happened last week, player. You talk about what happened in the past that brought us here. That's history. Learn it. Let's get off of Twitter. But anyway, I think the problem with let's say we're doing the Hip Hop 100 celebration. Yeah, the farther we get removed from the elements of hip hop, it's gonna be more of a celebration of fame and less a celebration of skill. Look at the artists that we've seen, the performances we've seen. We've got 50-year-old artists going into their 60s, just killing the stage. They will get on stage rapping like they are 22. They got the moves, they got the stage presence. And then you have today's artists, 90% of them barely move. They have no stage presence. They aren't being taught those fundamentals. And a lot of their stardom is more vibes, more swag or riz or whatever you want to call it. I'm old, sorry. And it's more we're celebrating the celebrity and not the art. So unfortunately, yes, I do think that as the time goes on, if we're on this current trajectory, get us a new timeline and we can talk better. But on this current trajectory, yeah, player, we might just be celebrating our favorite hip-hop stars off reality shows and actually art of emceeing. And that just makes me so sad. Next question. Good Lord, Paul, you got me messed up. This one is from Vocals Again. Which rap collabs have we been deprived of never hearing? That's a good question. I can't really think of too many collab as far as songs that we've never heard, but there are lots of albums. Where is my Nas and DJ Premier album? What? We've been talking about this album since 1999. There is no reason this album should have not come by now. Give me that. We have been deprived of that. Ugh. We never got the Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown album. I know we never will. I kind of wish they would just put that foolishness aside. Let's get that album. I would love to have that. Here's one that we never got. Like, the timeline never worked for this one. We never got a Big Pun, and we never got a Biggie Smalls album. Can you imagine two literal heavyweights going crazy on, like, let's say this album drops in like 99, it would be incredible. Massive, no pun intended. Ground shaking, no pun intended. Hey, pun, no pun intended. But no, we were deprived of lots of stuff. I can't think of any current artists that I would like to match up, like even like a Rhapsody and a Queen Latifah. We've even gotten that. Like, there's so many dream pairings that happens now, which is very cool because we didn't always get that in the early days. So I can't think of anything like that. But we certainly missed out on a lot of incredible albums. That just makes me sad. Can somebody ask a question that doesn't make me sad? Who's up next? Well, this won't work. Shout out to my boy Brandon. Theo is what we call him. What is your hip-hop related pet peeve? Most of my hip-hop pet peeves all circle around the fan bases and the stand-ups and this mentality that, like, you can't criticize artists without taking it as a personal attack. Listen, I have all the respect in the world for KRS-One, as I talked about a little bit earlier. But I can say, that man be doing some weird stuff. You need to calm down. That's okay. I can say that Busta Rhymes, one of my favorite artists of all time, put out an album this year that's one of the worst albums he's ever done. And he had no business putting out an album that whack when he dropped an album a couple years ago that was vastly better. What are you doing, Buzz? There's no offense. I don't want Busta to die. This is not a thumb in the eye of all of his fans. It's not. I'm not like just desecrating his entire career. He put out an album I don't like, and I want him to do better. I think that fans need to get back to being critical of their favorite artists and demanding more of them. That's what's missing, and I hate that we just can't do that. Ugh. If we're talking about pet peeves regarding hip-hop itself as far as production, really the only pet peeve I have right now is this mindset of being singular-minded. Hip-hop used to really celebrate being creative and being different. One of the worst offenses of hip-hop when I was growing up is to sound like the next person, biting. If you bit somebody, it was over. Your career would be over. There were diss tracks created because someone thought someone was stealing their sound. Now it's like almost a given. Like, you have to sound like everybody. You have to do everybody has to have a bunch of Afro beats on their song. I don't want to hear that. I don't want the Migos can sound like the Migos. I don't want everybody sounding like the Migos. I just want more individuality back. And it kind of bothers me that that's kind of been almost discouraged. So yeah, that's a pet peeve. Can someone please ask me a question that doesn't annoy me? My giving me arthritis. Alright, next up is my boy Derek Dunn. Shout out Reviews and Dunn. If you want to go see some dope movie reviews and some concert reviews, he got them on lock. Let's see what Derek's talking about. Why weren't hip-hop movies, good and bad, highlighted more? I think he's talking about for its time, and I will blame that on the era. So to me, the best hip-hop movies were, of course, like, Crush Grooves and things like that in the 80s. But you gotta remember, hip-hop was not what it was now then. Hip-hop was still seen as niche. It was like this niche thing. So, hey, here's this niche movie for this niche music sound that's probably gonna be a fad. You know how many times I heard that in the 80s? Hip-hop is a fad, and the fad is going to end anytime soon, so this is a movie based off of a fad. So no, a lot of that stuff did not get the attention that it did. Later movies did, 8 Mile and stuff like that. You got a lot of, and the biopics later on, Notorious, Straight Outta Compton. I think some of those got a little bit more play, but the early ones, the ones that I really love, just didn't because there was no push behind it. If you're a movie fan, like I know Derek is, you'll see like these incredible movies like Hereditary, horror movies. Like they don't ever get any love at the Oscars because they're seen as lowbrow. Comic movies, they don't, as good as a Black Panther, the first one is, and a few others, Endgame, Dark Knight. These are great movies, not just comic movies, but they're seen as niche. So people turn their noses up at them, and they don't get the love that they deserve. And I think a lot of hip-hop movies fall in that category. In 2023 and beyond, now that hip-hop is mainstream, I think we're seeing a lot more embracing of it. Definitely more than back in the day. But there's still a tinge of like, oh, that's their stuff. This isn't our stuff. This isn't real art. This isn't real cinema. That's just, whatever. It's dope. If it's dope, it's dope, and it needs to be celebrated as such. So yeah, I think that's what holds it back a little bit. But I'm here to support any good movie, especially hip-hop related. Speaking of good stuff, check out this question from the homie Paul. You have to select 5 albums to put in a time capsule to celebrate the diversity and quality of hip-hop in 50 years. Which 5 are you picking? This is a good one. You better be glad they didn't ask Rolling Stone this, because they put that Ski Yee lady all up in it, and I'm so sick of her. Can I take a time out? If you are a publication, if you're a publication that's dedicated to talking about the best music of the year, can you talk about the best music that came out? Not the music from the most popular people on Twitter. I know you got to get your algorithms popping, but can we talk about, there is no way, I listened to 180 albums last year. There is no way that the Ski Yee lady or the Ice Spice lady belongs on any list unless you only heard 4 albums and those were 2 of them. Anyway, let's get back to the time capsule, because clearly those 2 albums will not be in there. So when it comes to a time capsule, you gotta put in historic stuff. You gotta also be cool and like be inclusive of the regions, because hip-hop is just such a regional thing. So first off, I mean, you gotta kind of do Sugar Hill Gang, because that's like considered the first hip-hop album. I feel like that has to be there just for posterity's sake. So I put that one in. Let's go Public Enemy. Either we can do Nation of Millions or Fear of the Black Planet. Let's do Nation of Millions. Put that one in as number 2. Look, we got to put the best one in there of all time, which is Illmatic. So Illmatic's number 3. So we got Public Enemy, Sugar Hill Gang, Illmatic. We'll put a modern album in. So To Pimp a Butterfly, that in my opinion is the best modern hip hop album. So you can put that in. And then for number 5, let's go with my girl Missy. I know y'all gonna be like, oh, of course you gonna put your girl in there. But I would put her in there just because, as we talked about earlier, hip-hop thrives in creativity. And her album, Super Duper Fly, in my opinion, to this day, it came out in 1997. The thing still sounds futuristic. Plus, it shows some love to the elite of female MCs. So, we got Sugar Hill Gang, we got Illmatic, we've got It Takes a Nation of Millions Hold Us Back, we've got To Pimp a Butterfly, we got Super Duper Fly. I think that's a dope time capsule. Plus you got all the regions covered. You got the South, you got the North, you got the West, you got the East. I think I did a pretty good job. I'm sure y'all will tell me how I messed up in the comments, because that's what you do. Alright, next up we got a question from my boy Henry. What would have saved The Roc from breaking up? Oh, Roc-A-Fella. If you came out in the late 90s, Roc-A-Fella in the early 2000s, seems like they would have been around forever, would have taken over the industry. Nope. I would have told you then, nothing could have saved The Roc from breaking up. Why? Because the egos were too big and Jay just outgrew it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but let's just look at it. Like, The Roc came up as a small label. It hooked up with Def Jam. It grew. It actually became a giant roster at one point of some really talented artists. But at the end of the day, Jay-Z just became too much of a businessman to have time to do that. So he had to branch out on his own and do his own thing. You got Dame, who always saw this as a passion project. So he wants to hold on to his end. So that's why we got the inevitable split. In my opinion, I'm kind of surprised it didn't happen earlier than it did. There's no way around it. So I don't really see a way to save The Roc unless Jay-Z kind of holds himself back and doesn't kind of grow in his career. And of course he had to do that. If he just kind of kept himself more grounded, yeah, The Roc could still be around. And I mean, it could have got to like the level of a Bad Boy or something like that, was kind of branching out. And I know we have the Roc Nation banner and things like that, but there's nothing like the old school Roc-A-Fella. It's just really was a product of his time, and Jay-Z had to move on. Dame had to move on. It was no way that was going to be sustainable forever, ever. Lasted about as long as it could, as most labels do, to be honest. What's next? Alright, my boy Daryl. Favorite hip-hop soundtracks. Man, this one I could go all day because there are so many soundtracks back there that I just love so much. And I miss the era of the soundtrack. Of course, the number one, everybody's going to go Above the Rim. That's kind of like the gold standard of soundtrack, hip-hop soundtracks. Shout out to the Dreamville's Creed 3 soundtrack that dropped earlier this year. Again, one of my favorite albums this year. Go to soulandstereo.com. See the whole list of 50 albums that I thought were super dope. That was one of them. But, man, I could go all day. Nutty Professor, the second Nutty Professor, Space Jam, Sprung, Money Talks. I love the Money Talks soundtrack. Super underrated. High School High, I thought was real cool. I don't know if Boomerang counts. Boomerang was very R&B-ish. And that was an era where both of those, you had hip-hop and R&B on both sides. So it was kind of tough to kind of say which one was strictly hip-hop. New Jersey Drive was dope. So many dope ones. Dr. Doolittle, the Blue Streak soundtrack. Man, I miss soundtracks. They were super fire. But I think, of course, I would have to agree with most people who say the best one was Above the Rim. Alright, so we're going to stick with my boy Daryl, who asks, what are the most important songs in hip-hop? There's another one, y'all. This one is tough. Because, like, how do you define importance? Are we talking about biggest sellers, most influential, best lyrical ability displayed, most memorable? I mean, you could say Back That Thing Up, or you could say Whoop There It Is, or you could say Rewind from Nas. There's just so many ways you can go. But I'm just going to kind of throw some stuff out. I think you got to do Rapper's Delight because of its historical nature there. The Message, I think, is a big one that, of course, stands the test of time. Fight the Power, the preeminent Black Power anthem for hip-hop, without question. All Right has done a good job of picking up that banner, but I think that Fight the Power, to me, is... Because Fight the Power always felt like it was made for that, and All Right, as dope as it is, and shout out to Kendrick, it feels more like it was co-opted for it instead of being designed specifically for the movement. But whatever, shout out to both. But I think I'd go with Fight the Power over that one. Nothing But a G Thing just completely rechanged the game. You gotta go with that one. Eminem's Lose Yourself. I don't even like that song, y'all, but I can't deny its importance. Speaking of can't deny its importance, you know what here's a trivia question. What is the highest selling hip hop song of all time? Unless my memory fails me, I think it's Macklemore's Thrift Shop. That is not going on this list. I just wanted to make a trivia note. That ain't up there. But I think the ones that I named earlier are among the most important. I could do a whole video on like 50 songs that are the most important, but those are ones that pop to mind the most. So y'all can yell at me because I didn't put some random song from the boot camp clip up there, but it's cool. Alright. Man, Daryl is just hitting it with these things. Who are hip-hop's most influential artists? It's another tough one, y'all, because again, how do you define influence? Are we defining overall? Or do we define it as a region? Or do we define it sales? Or are we defining it skills? So I'm just going to go with my opinion. You can get mad at me another time, but this is what I'm going to go with. Rakim. Rakim, in my opinion, reimagined lyricism. If you listen to rap pre-Rakim and rap after Rakim, it's a completely different shit. You see these memes on Instagram where people are making fun of 80s rappers and saying like, y'all say our rappers can't rap, but in the 80s they were like, like, yeah, they were, because that's what it was. It's like getting mad at a black and white TV show. Oh, my show is better because it's in HD. No, it's just a different time. Calm down. If your show is trash in HD, it's still trash. So you got to give Rakim props for making a shift lyrically. So I give him props for that. Another one who does not get enough credit for a shift in style and presentation of rappers, Big Daddy Kane. They want none of these lover man rappers, smooth dudes that y'all love until Kane did it. So shout out to Kane for holding it down. Of course, Jay-Z. You got to put him up there. Jay-Z actually followed in the mold of Kane. Jay-Z is kind of the template for a lot of artists today. For better or worse, Lil Wayne is the same way. He is a template for many artists as well. Can't forget about old Puff Daddy. Alright, we can't mention that name clearly. Alright, my bad. Lil Kim, listen, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, but I will tell you this. There is not a wig on this internet that was invented before Lil Kim. She is the template for so many female rappers. I'm sorry for you who started watching and listening to rap in 2011. But no, your fave stole from Kim. She got that wig from Kim. She got that style from Kim. Kim is the absolute template. Go back and look. Just look at the pictures. Or listen to the music. Like, don't deny it. You know who else should get props for being an innovator? You can't say that I'm not unbiased. You cannot say that I am a biased person because I am an unbiased music reviewer. Soulja Boy. The grandfather of weirdo internet rappers, in my opinion. So you gotta give Soulja Boy credit. This dude came out of nowhere, went viral online, became a phenomenon, and that's pretty much the template for rap for the past 15, 20 years. They're following the Soulja Boy mode. Ugh. It's true, whether I like it or not. And you know who else, whether I like it or not, is very influential? Kanye West. Now, how come? Now, look here, D Roth. I mentioned that other guy, and I get almost buzzed off my own YouTube page. But I mentioned Kanye, and it's just all peaceful. I see how y'all do. Lucky I gave him props, though. Next question. He needed a buzzer, too. Alright, shout out to Alex. He's up in the comments and with the good question himself. My 5 best Southern rappers. Oh, this one's tough too. I like all these questions. I like when you make them challenging for me. Top 3 is easy though. You gotta do Big Boy. You gotta do Andre 3000. And for better or worse, you gotta do Lil Wayne. I am very critical of modern day Wayne, but you cannot say that when he was at his peak, he was at his peak. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, the influence is undeniable. So you got those 3 right there off the bat. So you only got 2 more spots, which makes this list tough. I'm gonna go with Uncle Face. I'm gonna go with Scarface for number 4. And number 5, I wish I could get a lady in there and do Missy. Wish I could do my boy Pusha T. Might have to do with the OG himself, Bun B. I think I'll make him number 5. So, yeah. Wayne, Big Boy, Andre, Scarface, Bun B. I think that's a solid 5. Luda. Ooh, I wish I could get Luda in there. That's probably... I'll stick with this. That's my top 5. That's my top 5. Y'all made it hard on me. Alright, next up. This is actually our last one. We're going to round out with my boy Will. Will there be a new sound introduced in the next year or two. I'm tired of trap. Me too, brother. And Will is young. Don't call him an old head. He's younger. He's way younger than me. Shout out to Will. He know what's up. Man, I sure hope so. As we talked about a little bit earlier at the beginning of this video, hip-hop was not meant to be in this box. And the reason why it's gotten into this box, I'll tell you. As hip-hop became more commercialized and an industry has found a standard for it, that's the template that it's become. And there's no need for them to change the recipe because it's what y'all buying. Put it like this. Put it like this. You go to McDonald's, you eat the little cheeseburger that tastes like cardboard. You know why that cheeseburger all flat and tastes like cardboard? Because they have perfected a formula. It doesn't have to be good, but it has to be something that everybody likes. And this is what works. So why would they change the formula when it's still selling? Why are they going to give you a new sound when the trap sound is still selling? They are going to continue to use that template for an array of artists from Future to whoever else, and they're going to keep giving you boilerplate music until it doesn't work anymore. When it doesn't work anymore, then they will embrace a new sound. Because you have to remember, as hip-hop fans, those of you who are watching this video, we're looking at things from a fan lens, maybe through a critical lens like I do. We're not looking at it through a business lens. And as a business lens, you're just going to do whatever makes money. No matter how boring, dull, or whack it is, if it's making money, they're going to do it. So how do we break the cycle? It's easy, player. I'm glad you asked. You, as the consumer, have way more power than you realize. The reason why nothing has changed is because hip-hop has been on a steady climb for all these years. But as I mentioned, in this year, 2023, is one of the first years, I'm not going to say hip-hop isn't profitable, but it is one of the first years where we didn't see it just dominating everything. And we're seeing country artists slide in. We're seeing, my beloved R&B is even starting to make a little bit of comeback. We're starting to see cracks in the foundation. And trust me, the industry does not want to lose its foothold. So if you want a different sound, you start voting with your wallet. You start streaming somebody other than whatever milquetoast thing that Drake has delivered to you 100 times. Start streaming other artists. Start supporting other artists. You can ski if you want to, but hook up somebody else. Give other artists who are embracing new sounds, new ideas, a chance. Put them on, and once they become the new standard, then they will create the new sound. I wish we could go back to the days of 1998 where you could hear a Mos Def on the radio and a Jay-Z and a No Limit song and a Lauryn Hill song and a Yolanda Adams song all in the same hour block. Now it's just 16 clones of the same thing. It's sad, but I'm hoping that we can get there soon enough. So yep, I'm sick of trap. I'm hoping it changes soon. I'm gonna hold my breath. But the power of my players are in your hands. Alright y'all, that was it. These are some great questions. We gotta do this more often. This was really fun. So again, now it's your turn. We spent all year celebrating 50 years of hip hop. Let me know what you thought of the 50-year celebration in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about some of these comments below. Do you think that those 5 albums that were in the time capsule are good enough? Throw yours in there. You better not throw no Ice Spice in there though. I know that. What are your 5 favorite Southern hip-hop artists? Let us know below. Share all of your thoughts and memories of the Hip Hop 50 celebration, and we can get it in a little bit. Hopefully, it's better days for hip-hop going into 2024 and beyond. Again, the power's in your hands, y'all. Just support good music. This edition of the Soul and Stereo Sessions is a wrap. Hope y'all have a good holiday season, player. Let's do some good music. Play on, players.